Christian Pulisic's gain, Real Madrid's pain. The Luka Modric decision that changed everything for Xabi Alonso. Christian Pulisic may not have been directly involved in the decision, but its ripple effects are now being felt across Europe. While he continues to establish himself as a central figure at the San Siro, events in Madrid have quietly tilted the balance of power in his favor. The departure of Luka Modric, taken against the wishes of Xabi Alonso, has reshaped two elite squads and revealed how one club's calculated gamble has become another's competitive advantage. In Madrid, the decision was framed as a necessary step toward renewal. In Milan, it has become a masterstroke. And for Pulisic, it has altered the internal hierarchy of influence in a way few anticipated. The story begins before Xabi Alonso had even settled into his new office at the Bernabeu. As revealed by El Mundo, Real Madrid's board had already made up its mind about Modric's future. Despite the Croatian's willingness to stay, even offering multiple salary reductions to extend his contract by another year, the club hierarchy delivered a firm refusal. Alonso, who had just taken over from Carlo Ancelotti, privately supported Modric's continuation. He viewed the veteran midfielder as a stabilizing presence, someone who could guide a young core through transitional moments. But the decision was no longer his to make. From Madrid's perspective, the rationale was clear: bet on youth, not legacy. The club believed the midfield was already well stocked with Aurelien Tchouaméni, Eduardo Camavinga, Federico Valverde, and Arda Güler. Modric, at nearly 40 at the time, was deemed surplus to the long-term vision. Madrid's youth bet, and its immediate cost. On paper, the logic made sense. Los Blancos have built an empire by moving early, trusting young stars before their peak years. Yet soccer is rarely played on spreadsheets alone. As the season unfolded, cracks began to show. The midfield, dynamic but inexperienced, has struggled at key moments to control tempo, dictate rhythm, and manage game states. What Madrid lost was not just a passer, but leadership, calm, and institutional memory. Modric's absence has been felt most acutely in high-pressure scenarios, where the lack of a senior conductor has left Alonso's side exposed. While Thibaut Courtois and Dani Carvajal remain dressing room leaders, the midfield no longer has a natural general. Milan's gain: Modric reborn in Italy. If Madrid underestimated Modric's remaining value, Milan wasted no time capitalizing. Signed on a one-year deal, the Croatian arrived not as a ceremonial figure, but as a starter. The impact has been immediate and profound. Modric has started all 15 league matches, completed 1,068 passes, and created 26 chances, more than any other Rossoneri player. At 40, he is dictating matches with the same elegance that once defined Champions League nights in Spain. Football history rarely turns on a single moment. It bends, instead, around decisions. Quiet meetings, contract clauses, timing that feels trivial until it isn't. One such decision, deceptively small at first glance, reshaped the paths of three men and two institutions: Luka Modric, Real Madrid, and a young coach named Xabi Alonso. Far from the Bernabeu's marble corridors, the ripples of that choice reached Milan, where Christian Pulisic found the freedom that would redefine his career. This is a story about endings that refuse to end, about beginnings born from patience, and about how legacy can be both a gift and a burden. The choice that wouldn't go away. By the time Luka Modric entered the twilight of his career, Real Madrid faced a familiar dilemma: how to honor greatness without letting reverence become inertia. Modric was more than a midfielder. He was a rhythm, a compass. For a decade, Madrid's midfield breathed to his tempo. Even as the calendar caught up, his intelligence didn't. He still saw passes others couldn't, still calmed chaos with a single touch. But football does not wait politely. The next generation, Valverde's engine, Camavinga's bite, Tchouaméni's steel, needed not just minutes, but responsibility. And looming over it all was Xabi Alonso, Madrid's former metronome, now a coach whose ideas were gathering admirers across Europe. When Alonso's name began to surface as a future heir to the Madrid bench, the Modric question stopped being sentimental and became philosophical. Do you let the old master linger, teaching by presence? Or do you clear space for a new order, even if it feels premature? Madrid chose continuity. Modric stayed. Respect prevailed. The consequences were anything but respectful. Xabi Alonso and the weight of shadows. Xabi Alonso's coaching identity was forged in clarity. At Bayer Leverkusen, his teams pressed with purpose, built with patience, and trusted structure over stardom. He believed in transitions that were rehearsed, not improvised. For Alonso, the midfield wasn't a museum, it was a laboratory. Had he arrived at Madrid with Modric still central, the symbolism would have been overwhelming. How does a former pupil redefine a system while the master still commands the room? How do you convince young midfielders to own the ball when the greatest of their era remains the safest option? Alonso, for all his reverence, understood the trap. Managing legends is less about tactics and more about time. Modric's presence would demand deference, slow the recalibration, and tether the future to the past. In choosing to extend Modric's stay, Madrid didn't just keep a player, they delayed a philosophical handover. The pain wasn't immediate. It never is. Real Madrid's subtle stagnation. On paper, Madrid remained formidable. Titles still came. Nights still sparkled. But something dulled beneath the shine. The midfield rotation became conservative. Risk-taking shifted to the wings. Matches were controlled, not conquered. You could see it in the young midfielder's body language. Safe passes chosen over ambitious ones. Instincts paused in deference to hierarchy. Modric, ever professional, never demanded the spotlight. Yet his mere availability tilted decisions. Why gamble when genius sat on the bench? This wasn't decline. It was stasis. And for a club built on relentless evolution, stasis is pain. Meanwhile, in Milan, a door opens. While Madrid wrestled with legacy, AC Milan were chasing renewal. Into that space walked Christian Pulisic, burdened by expectation, bruised by inconsistency, and desperate for trust. In England, he'd been a solution in search of a problem. In Italy, he became an answer. What changed wasn't just tactics. It was context. Milan's midfield, unencumbered by untouchable icons, moved with intent. The ball arrived earlier, cleaner, with purpose. Pulisic, finally unshackled, thrived between lines. He pressed without fear of misplacing a pass. He drifted centrally, attacked the box, and rediscovered joy. There was a strange symmetry at play. As Madrid's midfield leaned on memory, Milan's embraced motion. And Pulisic, once labeled fragile, grew decisive. His gain wasn't accidental. It was structural. The butterfly effect of a legend. Modric never set out to block the future. Legends rarely do. But football, cruel in its honesty, counts minutes, not intentions. By staying, Modric extended Madrid's comfort zone, and comfort is the enemy of reinvention. For Alonso, watching from afar, the lesson was stark. If he were to take Madrid one day, it would have to be on his terms, with space to redraw the lines. The Modric decision didn't close the door on Alonso. It delayed it, reshaped it.